Just read the sentence for me.
The film starts by introducing us to its main character, Ishan Awasthi. He's a happy-go-lucky 8-year-old kid that seems pretty normal. Well, relatively normal. When he first appears, he's watching some street dogs go to town over what might be his homework. Actually, I'm pretty sure that's his homework, because when he arrives home later, his mother asks him. And he gleefully ignores her as he concentrates on that puzzle. Not that his mother continues to badger him for much longer, because a second after that, his older brother, Johan, arrives home. And from that moment on, it's the Johan show.
Sub subjects my first, Mom.
He's the smart older brother, the one that the mother and the father clearly care about the most. It's a good thing too, because Johan clearly knows how much better he is than Ishan. For about 30 minutes, this movie just punches down on this poor kid. Like right here, for example, he's out playing cricket with some local boys, but he can't even catch the ball. And when the boys turn on him and demand that he just go and collect the ball that he dropped, he sort of just stands there like he doesn't know what they're on about. Well, that leads to a fight, which leads to our boy lashing out and actually managing a beatdown on the older, bigger bully. Nice work, bud. At least he can do something right. But his parents don't think so. He arrives home a little later, and that older kid has actually told on him. What a narc. He's there with his mother, and one look at this kid with his torn t-shirt, and Ishan's parents start going off on the kid for fighting. His dad even slaps him across the face, he's so angry. Nothing seems to be going right for Ishan so far. And that includes being saddled with a dickhead father who has clear anger management issues.
Please, I'm sorry, Mama.
But Ishan's a sweet boy, and he's begging for forgiveness, even promises to get better and try harder. Somehow, I just don't think that's going to happen though. From there, we cut to this montage song, which is a pretty common occurrence in this movie. You'll see what I mean later. It shows Ishan and his parents going about their week. They get ready for school and work. They make lunch and dinner. They eat, and on and on and on it goes. And all the while, Ishan is struggling, although now we start to see a little bit more of what his problem might be. He's a dreamer with a vivid imagination. From the looks of things, Ishan isn't stupid. He's just distracted. Not that his parents seem to notice, or his teachers for that matter. Ishan's in class one day, clearly distracted by anything but what's happening in the classroom, and his teacher decides to remedy this by yelling at him. Teacher tries to get Ishan to read the pages that she had highlighted, but he doesn't.
Loud and proper.
Well, he doesn't do much. He just sort of stares at her blankly until a student helps him find the page. But then when he tries to read it, again, doesn't do much. He just stares at that page that he can't read. And when he's pressed further, he starts making nonsense noises because he doesn't know what to do. It's here where the teacher takes him aside and calmly asks him what's wrong and why is he struggling so much where the other students aren't. Nah, just kidding. She's yelling at him, of course, humiliates him in front of the entire class, and then sends him to the principal. Well, that's teaching 101, folks. Ishan leaves the class, but then decides to go a little further and just leaves the school. The kid's obviously not much for learning, and decides to instead spend the day wandering the city and seeing the sights. He doesn't do much though, just wanders about aimlessly for about 5 minutes of screen time. So that night, Ishan's sleeping in his room with his brother, and he confides in his brother, telling him that he spent the day out of school walking the streets. His brother freaks out about this, calling him crazy, but Ishan responds,
Absolute.
He's then begging his brother to forge a note from their mom explaining to the school why he was gone all day. The brother doesn't want to, but he ends up doing it in the end. So the next day, Ishan's taking a maths test. But as this is Ishan, we all know how it's going to go. He's staring blankly at the page, and soon recedes into his own vivid imagination. Here, he's a space pilot, using math to count planets and shoot down aliens and other things that really don't make sense. But this is Ishan's imagination. Things come to a head the next day for Ishan when his mother finds that note that his brother forged for him. But don't worry, his parents are calm and understanding about it. Oh, Dad, alright man, you calm down. Lucky Mom was there, and she eventually manages to coax an answer out of her son. But when he tells him that he spent the day wandering the streets, well, the father isn't too happy about that either. The big question now becomes, what are we going to do about Ishan? The parents visit the principal, where they learn that he's failing in everything.
शायद इससे कोई प्रॉब्लम है.
And if this keeps going, he's going to be kicked out of class for good. The father thus decides that the only thing they can do is to get Ishan the help he needs. Nah, just kidding. They're going to send him off to a fancy boarding school instead. The news isn't well received by Ishan. His pleas fall on deaf ears, which is a shame because this kid really doesn't want to go to this school. He has a nightmare about his mom abandoning him at a train station. He wakes up in tears and begs her again not to send him away. And in the mother's defense, she's looking like she doesn't really want to send him away either. But we can't help but feel like this might be a good thing. I don't know. Surely, Ishan will finally get the help he obviously needs, right? Right? Wrong. As soon as Ishan arrives, he gets told exactly what is expected of him. I don't know. We can't help but feel like things are only going to get worse for our poor boy. And indeed, day one in class, and right away we see that it's going to be more of the same for Ishan. The teacher here looks like a cartoon character gone wrong, and when he's asking the kid to read some poetry from his book, Ishan fixes him with that same blank stare. And then when he's asked to explain the poem's meaning, his interpretation doesn't sit well with the teacher at all. Even the kids are allowed to laugh at his expense. But would you believe it, that it only gets worse? In his next class, this kid can't answer the teacher's question, and the teacher resorts to corporal punishment. Just to recap now, Ishan has moved to this new boarding school. He can't read or write. The students laugh at him. The teacher mocks him. His parents don't want him around. Ishan is all alone in this world, and when he's not crying to himself, he's wandering off to be alone where no one can hurt him. It's pretty depressing, really. Which means that it's just about time for this movie to start turning things around. God knows that Ishan's ready for it. And sure enough.
I hope you Holkar sir se different hai.
The next day, our boy goes to his art class, only to learn that they have a substitute teacher filling in. All the students are excited. They crowd around the door waiting for him to enter. And when he does, well, take a look for yourself. The teacher is called Mr. Nakumba. And as you can see from this performance, he's not your ordinary teacher. Right away, he earns the students' trust. And we can see that Ishan might have actually found a teacher who cares about helping their students rather than good grades. And indeed, the students' first task is to draw whatever the heck they want. Only, Ishan doesn't want to join in. He doesn't answer. He just stares blankly ahead in a way that we're more used to by now. So our nice teacher doesn't push him any further, but he's clearly concerned. It's now that we learn a little bit more about our mystery teacher. He's in the teacher's lounge, and the other teachers are making fun of him for his less than traditional methods. But Mr. Nakumba doesn't take this bait. He claims that children need to express themselves and have fun. Yeah, in case we needed more evidence as to how truly terrible these teachers are. They literally insult him for trying to help the mentally challenged. Damn. Ishan never really stood a chance coming here. Lucky that Mr. Nakumba arrived when he did, because immediately he takes an interest in Ishan. He approaches Ishan's only friend, Rajan, and asks what's going on with him. Rajan explains that Ishan just wants to go home. This just piques the teacher's curiosity further. And next we see him pulling out all of Ishan's school books and reading through them in an effort to try and figure out what's troubling the poor kid. The books are filled with red lines, circles, and crosses. Further proof that Ishan isn't exactly an A student, but this just seems to worry Mr. Nakumba even more. Later, he's working at the special needs school and complaining to his girlfriend about the way Ishan's treated. He seems to think that there's more to Ishan than what people are seeing. But the way the school operates, all they care about are grades. In fact, he even admits to seeing himself in Ishan. This, of course, leads us into the next montage, backed by some serene music paired with Mr. Nakumba looking pensive and contemplative as he considers what to do. When the song ends, he comes to a decision and pays Ishan's parents a much-needed visit. Here, he's trying to explain to them very carefully that Ishan isn't stupid or incompetent.
आपको क्या लगता है उसकी प्रॉब्लम क्या है?
Or lazy, as his father and everyone else seems to think so, but rather, he just has dyslexia. It makes perfect sense, and it should be a real light bulb moment for the father, but his father's basically a cartoon villain and responds as you might expect.
ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, ये सब बहाने हैं.
But our new teacher hero doesn't give up. He sees a box in the house covered in Chinese lettering. He hands it to the father and demands that the father read it right now. Of course, the father can't, so Mr. Nakumba belittles him and talks down to him and calls him stupid. And to be honest, might have been the most satisfying part of the whole movie. The point he's trying to make is that Ishan isn't stupid. He simply can't associate letters with the sounds that they're supposed to make, and every time he tries, he gets called stupid and lazy. This has seen him retreat into his shell, turning him to the Ishan that we all know so well by now.
क्या बनेगा बड़ा होकर वो?
But there's a silver lining here. It turns out that Ishan is actually extremely gifted.
हर बच्चे की अपनी खूबी होती है.
His imagination's so vivid. And one look at Ishan's drawings and paintings that adorn his room. And Mr. Nakumba sees that. Obviously, the father tries for one more jibe, but our teacher isn't falling for that one. At least the mother looks receptive, and possibly even relieved. But still, the father carries on like an angry child.
क्या सारी उम्र में उसे घर पे बैठ के खिलाता रहूंगा?
Until Mr. Nakimba has no choice but to leave. So we're back in class, and it looks like Mr. Nakimba has an idea. He spends the class telling the students of famous scientists and inventors and actors who all suffer from dyslexia. He makes sure to point out that this doesn't make them different or weird, and that there's nothing wrong with it at all. He makes sure that Ishan is listening closely, that he knows this is really about him. And once you know it, Ishan starts to look just a little bit less depressed than usual. Next up, Mr. Nakimba visits the school principal so that he can explain what is wrong with Ishan. Now, one would think that a principal of a school might be receptive to hearing that one of his students has dyslexia. But as is typical, he seems relieved because it means that they can ship the kid off to another school. Listen to this.
स्पेशल स्कूल ही सही जगह उसके लिए.
Well, that's not the answer our super teacher was expecting at all. He proceeds to shame this principal for acting like Ishan isn't worthy of studying here. He then shows the principal some of the artwork that Ishan has done, how talented he is, and finally he volunteers to spend several hours a day with this kid to help him with his reading and writing. The principal doesn't look like he's too into it, but he eventually relents. And now, it's time for another montage. This one is just the teacher and Ishan working together and helping Ishan with his studies. But Mr. Nakimba doesn't bother with books and texts. He uses art to help the kid understand, making him draw the letters and the sounds, and helping him to associate these things in his head in a way that no one else could. And damn, if this scene doesn't just make you a little emotional, then I don't know what will. But my man isn't done yet. I'm starting to suspect that he's trying out for Indian of the Year, because next up he announces his intention to host an art contest open to all students and teachers. A few days later, and Ishan's father decides to pay Mr. Nakumba a visit. The reason for this is that he just wants to brag to the teacher that he and his wife have read up on dyslexia, and now they get it.
अपने आप ही मर जाता है.
But our teacher isn't letting the father off the hook so easily. He responds by telling him that caring for someone isn't just knowing what's wrong with them. In order to care for a person, you have to show them that you care through actions, not words. He continues to imply that the father doesn't care at all, and that this has broken Ishan. He then suggests that if the father really wants to show how much he cares, he needs to prove it. A hug, a kind word, some actual parenting for a damn change. His words obviously have a huge effect on the father, who leaves the meeting looking distraught. And then, when he walks outside, he sees his son reading for the first time. This has the man breaking down in tears and running off before he's seen. Maybe there's hope for him yet. It's the day of the art competition and everyone's getting involved. Indeed, it does look like half the school's turned up. Even the principal's excited for it. And not just the principal either. All the teachers are there. And with the exception of the cartoon character teacher, the rest seem rather excited about the prospect of a day spent painting and drawing. That is, except for Ishan, who hasn't turned up yet. Mr. Nakumba is worried about this and is asking if anyone's seen the kid. But as luck would have it, right before the contest starts, he arrives. And what's more, he's looking ready. Time for another montage. This one shows us the competition unfolding and how much everyone's getting into it. Even the cartoon character teacher is having more fun than he thought he would. And we do see him trying his darnest to produce something that might be called art.
Very sir, आप गए नहीं? आप तो 5 मिनट में जाने वाले थे.
Apparently not. Everyone's involved. Ishan especially. We see him in the corner, concentrating on his painting. But there's something special about this one. The colors swirling in front of him seem to take shape before his eyes. Oh, he's clearly gifted, possessed of an ability beyond anything that we could have possibly imagined. Ishan walks through the crowd, making his way towards Mr. Nakimba. He shows his teacher the painting and, as expected, it's magnificent. A true work of art that even the teacher's shocked speechless. But that's nothing compared to when Ishan sees what his teacher's painting. It's Ishan, a giant portrait filled with magnificent colors, all centered around a smiling Ishan, looking the happiest that we've ever seen him. I'm getting goosebumps reading this. The sight of himself stuns the boy. He simply can't believe that he could inspire such beauty in others. Now, if this scene doesn't bring a tear to your eye, turn it off, stop watching us, you're not human. Although at the same time, can we just point out that this teacher is a little too talented to be competing in a student art competition? I feel like he's rigged it for himself. And when it comes time to announce who won, the judge can't decide who to pick. Go figure.
ललिता लाजमी जी 2 पेंटिंग्स के बीच में फंस गई थी. It was a tie.
We love a little suspense, but I think we all know who's going to win. And sure enough, a moment later, the principal announces that the student, not the master, has won the art contest. He announces our boy's name, and the entire student body erupts with applause as they turn and cheer for Ishan. Only Ishan remains hidden, too overwhelmed by all the adulation he's receiving. Probably for the first time in his life. But soon the students are behind him, pulling him to the front of the stage and clapping the whole way. He gets up on the stage, still looking shocked as he always does. When the principal hands him the prize, Ishan turns and runs to his teacher, wraps him in a huge grateful hug that again tugs on those emotions like it's nobody's business. And then, just to tie everything into a neat little bow, the principal announces that Mr. Nakumba will now be the school's new full-time art teacher.
अब हमें नया आर्ट टीचर ढूंढने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी.
It's the end of the semester, and the mood has definitely changed. Even Ishan's parents seem happy for a change. They're sitting with the principal, showing them Ishan's art piece. The father's looking at it like he's never seen a painting in his life. Truly, he can't believe it. But things only go better from there. They meet Ishan's teachers, who explain that their son's grades have improved out of sight.
क्या improvement दिखा अब? भाई वाह, बहुत खूब.
The parents continue to look stunned. They cannot believe this. The mother cries. The father cries. The parents then thank Mr. Nakumba personally, and finally, the movie ends with us seeing Ishan again. He's happy now, playing football with his brother, and looking like for the first time ever, he truly belongs. He hugs his teacher, they high-five it, and we get the sense that Ishan might just look forward to returning the next year. Awesome film. This was our recap of Like Stars on Earth, produced by Amir Khan Productions, and released in 2007. Directed by Amir Khan, it starred Amir Khan and Arshil Safari. This movie tugged on those old heartstrings. Come on, which moment hit you the hardest? Let us know with that #CinemaRecap in the comments. And as always, thank you guys. See you next time.